Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to part 2 of the James Damore versus Google class action lawsuit. If you haven't watched part 1, I suggest you go ahead and do that. I'll wait for you. Sorry, that's a lame edit joke. I won't wait for you. I'm going to keep recording. If you don't know, real quick, it's about the guy from Google, worked at Google. Last year, he wrote what has been termed in the media as a manifesto. And the manifesto was about diversity at Google. And from his perspective, it was a document on how Google could increase its diversity while not violating California labor laws, right? Which seems like a pretty important thing to do. You don't want to violate laws as an employer, even if you're a big one like Google, and maybe especially if you're a big one like Google. Because as you get bigger, the costs get bigger as well, and the public shame and outrage get bigger, if the current events aren't on your side. So we'll see how that goes. Last time, yesterday for me, I don't know when you're watching this or when you watched the last one, I went through the intro and then the facts section for James Damore and the other guy, Gudeman. These are the two representatives of the class. And we went through the facts about their specific employment at Google and what led to their termination, which they have deemed to be unlawful termination. Today, we're going to go through the class qualification section of the facts, and I'm going to talk about this in just a second. But this is where they're going to describe all the activity in sum, right? They're not going to go into as many specifics because they, one, probably don't have them, and two, it's not really necessary to reiterate the specific instances of everyone. What they're going to do, though, is in sum, try and explain what has happened to other people who are similarly situated at Google. The way you certify a class in a lawsuit is you have to have certain common nexuses. What's the plural in nexus? I don't know. Anyway, you have to have a common nexus for all of these people that leads directly to the claimed harm to bring them into the class, right? So if you're saying that conservative white males are being discriminated against within Google, then your class would consist, you'd have three potential classes: conservatives, Caucasians, and males. But someone who meets all three of those characteristics becomes a definite, an easy class member. And then, their injury has to stem from their membership in the class. So if you have a Caucasian white male who was fired for punching a coworker, it's pretty hard to certify them in a class for discrimination based on their race, gender, and political ideology. They're not a member of that class. So again, you have the common characteristic, and then you have which acts as a nexus, and then the transaction or event or status that is common amongst everyone, leading to the unlawful activity that happened against them. So that's how you do it, and that's what they're going to attempt to do in the following section. I've skimmed it a little bit. I haven't read everything, just like before. So let's see what they do. Today, on a side note, if you're new to my channel, I do this over scotch or whiskey because it makes life a little bit better, especially when you're dealing with something that is not so great. So today is a sad day or a happy day. Depends on your perspective, I suppose. And this will be the end of this bottle of Lagavulin 16. It's sad because I'll need to get another one at some point in the very near future. But it's been a good bottle, and they always are. They always are a good bottle, so. It's a great sound. Oh, that's depressing. There's only this much left. Soon it will be ingested and it will be glorious. And that's how we get down here at Lawsplaining, or Rekieta Law, whatever you want to call it. And just as a brief legal disclaimer, right, for the people out there who might be concerned that a rural Minnesota lawyer is representing either of these parties, I have never met anyone involved in this case. I am not representing or offering legal advice to Gudeman, to Damore, or to Google. Much more expensive lawyers than me are doing so, and I just get to bask in this and break it down for you fine folks, and open up a window into this stupid world that some of us paid a lot of time and money to understand, and you guys were smart enough to not spend your time and money in that way and to pursue more productive tasks. So let's dig into this. And one more point of order. Again, if you're new here, I read almost every word of these lawsuits. This is like a soothing audiobook. So if you don't want to stare at my mug and the page here, feel free to throw me on in the background and just listen. Just kind of absorb the information, see what the lawyers here are saying, and this will be biased, of course, towards the perspective of Damore because his lawyers wrote it. And as soon as we get Google's response, that'll be a whole nother can of worms. But let's dig in. So potential class members. Sorry. That's good, man. By the way, drink some Lagavulin. If you like whiskey or scotch and you haven't had it, I mean, if you have, obviously have some more. But if you haven't had it, you gotta at least try it because it's thick, it's peaty, it's smoky, it's glorious. It's like biting into a freshly extinguished campfire. Goes down smooth, comes out smoky, and there's something that just kind of ties you to the primality of nature, and it's good, man. It makes you feel nice. Even if you don't end up liking it, there's just something to it. You got to try it at some point. Have some, and then probably have some more. Sorry, I'll stop digressing on scotch for a little while, but as I drink more, we'll see. Google employees have witnessed multiple instances in which hundreds of, quote, progressive Googlers would target a single coworker for harassment and even potential violence over a politicized matter, humiliating the person and sabotaging his career. So what we've learned from this is that Google employees are just like everybody else. Right? If you've been on social media, I don't know, in the past decade, you see this and it may be increasing, or maybe we're just being exposed to it more. People are becoming more comfortable with the idea that you can call someone an idiot online. The difference is when calling that person an idiot, it negatively impacts their career in a specific way, and maybe the workplace has a duty to prevent that negative impact. I guess that's the difference between Google's internal social media and the social media that most of us participate in. In some of these cases, the victim of targeted harassment campaign was expressing legitimate concerns about discrimination against Caucasians and males in the workplace as a result of political agitation by social justice activists. I thought it was just social justice as an entity. As a result of this mistreatment and retaliation, many Google employees have been afraid to publicly come forward. And, again, if you go back and watch that first video and you see what Damore and Gudeman went through, it's obvious why they would be afraid to come forward. Damore published a several-page document that was researched, sourced, cited to sources from scientific journals, and within 3 days was fired despite not actually appearing to violate any policy that we've seen. So yeah, and Gudeman, the same thing. He made some comments on the internal social media board, and then those comments, which on their face are maybe inflammatory, but certainly not harassment in the way that they're construed. Were construed as harassment. Actually, he was accused of calling one of his coworkers a terrorist, and I challenge you to read his statements and find even the implication that the person was a terrorist in them. Now, granted, from speaking on Google's behalf here, maybe there are other statements that were left out of this complaint in which he does insinuate or imply or even directly state that the person is a terrorist. Don't know, won't know till we see Google's response and their justification in all of this. Anyway, because of the virulent threats against them by fellow Google employees, their names are not being used in the complaint at this time. This is kind of a cool feature of certifying a class, right? If you were suing as individuals, all of these people would have to be named, or they would have to petition for anonymity for maybe their job safety's sake. But since they're suing as a class and hoping that the judge will certify the class, these people get a shred of anonymity. What we can infer is that they're Caucasian males, probably of a conservative perspective. So it would be hard. I mean, it actually probably wouldn't be hard for Google to take the information from this complaint and try and track these people down. But this gives them just a little bit of a respite. And if they didn't ask to be brought into this, keeping them as potential class members rather than plaintiffs offers them a level of deniability and protection. Where they can say to their direct employers who come up and say, "Hey, what's up with you being a part of this lawsuit?" They can say, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! I'm not involved in this." So that's that. It gives some benefits to Damore and Guterman, but it also offers some protection to the people who may not, they may have felt discriminated against, but do they want to jeopardize their employment with a lawsuit? Maybe not. So it gives them a little insulation. In one example. In May 2015, a Google employee brought evidence of harassment and discrimination against other conservatives, males, and Caucasians to the attention of Google HR. Google HR made excuses for the progressive activists and waved away the misconduct, thus ensuring nothing was done about the systemic problem. Throughout the summer of 2015, the Google employee discussed the issue with several other concerned employees who shared the same protected traits. In early August of 2015, the Google employee then raised the issue of race and gender discrimination harassment at Google with Urs Holzel. I don't know how to pronounce that, man. Holzel? The senior vice president. This resulted in a targeted campaign of harassment and threats of blacklisting directed at the Google employee, which the Google management did nothing to stop. In fact, several members of management made statements that had the net effect of encouraging, quote, unambiguous social pecking of political dissidents. Listen to the language, right? Suddenly we're in Pol Pot's regime. That's a nice bit of flair. So we don't know who this is from. And this presumably would be a member of management that they're talking about making a statement of encouraging. So look, the only way we're going to solve this is by unambiguous social pecking done by everyone and especially leadership. It was awesome to see Urs Holzel step up and do this. Another comment, Urs for the win, and then a comment from Urs himself. I think to ask for a rule book is missing the point, but if you want a succinct summary, don't do what you're doing here. Contact me privately if you want to know more. Now, this is an interesting bit because we don't see what Urs is responding to, but I have skimmed ahead, and I'm gonna jump down real quick to here because I think this is the statement to which Urs is responding. Many Googles have claimed that it is, quote, harassment or some other rule violation to critique articles that push the social justice political agenda. A few Googlers have openly called for others to be fired over it. Do you support this viewpoint? And if so, can we add a clear statement of banned opinions to the employee handbook so that everyone knows what the ground rules are? That leads me to believe that this is what Urs is responding to. But let's look at the responses to Urs here. Urs is a good coworker. That's from Jacob Davies. Jonathan Mayer, not John Mayer. Now that I have the context, I can get behind this. Kind of weird. And then Julian Harris. Given the size and profile of people at Google, is it really that surprising that there are a bunch of people who really struggle with social skills? Implying that, someone potentially the poster there doesn't have the social skills, and that's what's causing them to have unpopular opinions, is their social skills. And then a blanked out person says there's a lack of social skills, which I totally have. Then there's being a shitheel, which blank has. So, that's interesting. On August 14th, 2015, a Google employee and several other employees raised the same issue of gender and racial discrimination with 2 other senior vice presidents in an email entitled, quote, "Concerns regarding intimidation and blacklisting." Google's blacklists are discussed in more detail below. On August 19th, 2015, in clear retaliation for the Google employee's ongoing attempts to end political discrimination at work, his HR manager and director issued the employee a final written warning letter. At no point did Google ever retract or repudiate the threats and attacks aimed at the Google employee. The warning that the Google employee had violated Google's policy to, quote, "create a respectful culture that is free from harassment, intimidation, or unlawful discrimination of any kind." Or the warning alleged that, sorry. The examples of the comments for which the Google employee was punished include the following. And now, it'd be nice if they included the entire letter in here, but they don't. So it'll be interesting to see if Google goes ahead and produces the letter, because I'm guessing they have it on file, and that it has some other, maybe more colorful statements. But let's read through these statements. First, are you insinuating that it is a jerk move to share your own opinion about a political blog post if 98% of Googlers disagree with you, but it's okay to share your opinion about a political blog post if 98% of Googlers agree with you? If so, how do you reconcile this view with Urz's request to help make Google a supportive place for minorities of any kind? Any kind would, imply minority of thought, right? That's the implication here. Statement 2. Can you point to the industry info post in which someone expressed an opinion in a way that ignored what others think? I mean, do these sound like harassment, intimidation, or unlawful discrimination yet? And the third one I just read a minute ago. Many Googlers have claimed that it is harassment or some other rule violation to critique articles that push social justice political agenda. Few Googlers have openly called for others to be fired over it. Do you support this viewpoint? And if so, can we add a clear statement of banned opinions to the employee handbook so that everyone knows what the ground rules are? And can I just stop for a minute and say that Googlers is a stupid nickname, a dumb moniker, and they should be ashamed of it. None of these comments remotely may be described as disorderly, disruptive, derogatory, name-calling, abusive, or profane, intimidating, or coercive. Parenthetical, in stark contrast to the hostile postings aimed at conservative male and or Caucasian Google employees and at others who made a stand against Google's discriminatory treatment of employees in these protected categories. Right, and they're setting up clear contrast here. Again, if you scroll up and look at what happened to Damore and Guterman, and then what's even been stated here, there's a different level, right? One is statements that are general in nature, maybe inquisitive, potentially inflammatory, but not directed. And then the other stuff is directed towards the employees. So yeah. Final written warning itself repudiated Google's own policy. Quote, "We strive to maintain the open culture often associated with startups." There's a footnote here. Google is not a startup. Google operates 70 offices in more than 40 countries and have market capitalization over 700 billion. It's just a little company. In which everyone is a hands-on contributor and feels comfortable sharing ideas and opinions. Ironically, the Google employee had provided ample evidence that Caucasian males who challenged certain assumptions behind the so-called, quote, social justice agenda were being routinely and unfairly branded as, quote, racist, sexist, or bigots and targeted for severe written abuse and career sabotage. According to Google's policies and procedures, the next step after a final written warning is termination. So the next allegation is that Google failed to protect employees from workplace harassment due to their support for President Trump. So this is getting on that political ideology class. In October of 2016, a site reliability manager at Google became aware that a Google employee was a supporter of President Trump and held socially conservative views. It's like a little Orwellian. They became aware of dissident opinions. These two individuals did not work together, but had become acquainted through the company's social mailing lists. At a group lunch where the manager was present, the Google employee expressed concerns about Google's intolerance of political minorities, such as conservatives. He stated that employees whose policies closely aligned with the senior management's views were receiving favorable treatment, while political dissidents were unfairly denied promotions. SL became enraged when he heard this and stormed off. Okay. I don't know who SL is. Did I miss that? I don't know. In March 2017, the manager scheduled a surprise meeting with the Google employees manager in an attempt to sabotage the Google employees' annual performance review. I don't know when Google does stuff, but when I worked in corporate America, my annual review was in March. My bonus time based on that annual review was in April. And I would suggest that maybe that's what's going on here. So this is a perfect time to sabotage it and ruin, some sort of performance bonus. The manager falsely accused the Google employee of participating in an illegal, quote, doxing campaign to publish an individual's personal information on the internet for the purposes of harassment. SL also suggested that the Google employee was involved in illegal workplace discrimination, which was absolutely false and unsupported. When the Google employee later met with his manager stated that he was very concerned about the doxing allegation the manager had made. The Google employee provided evidence that the manager's claims are false and concocted, but his name and reputation were already besmirched. In March of 2017, the manager also posted on a political mailing list visible to all 80,000 employees to brag about his meeting with the Google employees manager for the purposes of harassing and undermining him. Like, can you imagine, again, in a culture where you already feel, maybe that your viewpoints are not allowed, are taboo, and people are hostile to you, that this manager were to go ahead and publish bragging, talking about how he, who knows what he said. I really wish they had this mailing thing, and if this gets past summary judgment, maybe we'll get it in discovery. But, bragging about how he's harassing him and trying to ruin his reputation. Now, granted, from the manager's perspective, he was being triumphant in conquering an internet villain who was trying to dox people, right? Like that'd be the claim. Although, can they support the allegations of doxing or illegal activity? Is doxing an illegal activity? And that's a question for another day. But short answer, that's really hard to prove. In this conversation, the manager made additional politically motivated threats directed at members of the conservatives at mailing list community at Google. The manager threatened to call in employee relations to comb through the mailing list archives to nitpick old postings for possible code of conduct violations. Employee relations at Google is tasked with investigating employees for policy violations and building a case for discipline. They do not mediate disputes or offer advice. So here we have a thread going on here. And it says, I have received private feedback about the conservatives at list that contradicts this claim that it is the, quote, least hostile of any political list at Google to people who do not share their views. This appears absolutely untrue. The response is, in that case, I'm glad I was able to bring my assessment of the situation to your attention. I know the conservatives at list has needed to help a few participants in the past find communities better suited to their interests. Out of respect for the privacy of those individuals, I have no intention of mentioning names. What I can share is that the moderators indicated the personally held beliefs of those participants were not taken into consideration. The primary concern seemed to be ensuring that discussions remained on topic. Every mailing list has a right to set its own domain of discourse. I've seen a diverse number of people participate in that particular list. They've openly referred to themselves using many labels. However, during the time they chose to participate in Conservatives they're usually talking about things relating to conservatism. To me, that seems perfectly understandable. And the final response is, tell you what, how about you and I go to employee relations and ask them to take a look at the archives of that list? Then we can provide an official report back to Liberty with employee relations official stamp of approval, saying that Conservatives is a super welcoming list to those with differing views. What do you say, anonymous name, you with me? Now, this is text, but I'm guessing this is said, with some sarcasm and tongue-in-cheek nature going on here. The manager also threatened to apply Google's stringent, politically intolerant, and legally questionable employee handbook speech code to communications taking place between friends on non-work forums off the clock. As the manager stated, quote, interactions with coworkers outside of work are covered by the same policies as interactions at work. So, for example, current Googlers interacting with other current Googlers on a private external mailing list with several current and former employees on it. The manager's threats were reported to Google HR, and Google HR replied that the manager had, quote, crossed the line with his comments. However, Google never made the managers retract his threats or apologize for his sabotage attempts. In August of 2017, the same manager posted threats of litigation and termination directed against unnamed employees who spoke out to outside bloggers in support of Damore and his memo. Once again, Google did nothing. Right? You say a word and you're done, buddy. Google even attempted to stifle conservative parenting styles. So this is interesting. Google furnishes a large number of internal mailing lists catering to employees with alternative lifestyles, including, okay, furries, polygamy, transgenderism, and plurality, for the purpose of discussing sexual topics. Like, okay. I don't care what people do alone. But what's funny is the idea of a corporation seriously, like this large, seriously publishing articles about being a furry or, promoting polygamy. I mean, I could see maybe like an informational, talk about transgenderism, how to use proper pronouns and respect people's choices. Like, I got it. But like, in plurality. Let's see what plurality has a footnote. For instance, an employee who sexually identifies as, quote, a yellow-scaled wingless dragonkin and, quote, an expansive ornate building, presented a talk entitled Living as a Plural Being in an Internal Company Event. I mean, again, what you do is your business. It's not mine. But if you identify as a building, you got some issues. Like, do you have cornerstones and like a foundation? Do you have doors? Are you functional? Do you have an HVAC system? Are you up to code? I don't know how this works. And it's mind-blowing to me that someone can identify as a building. Like, what year? Like, how did we get to this year? It's so cool. And like, not only can someone identify it as a building, right? When they're a person, they can identify as a building. They can identify as inanimate. And I don't know how that works. Like, do you not breathe? I honestly don't know, and I'm genuinely curious. If you know how to identify as a building, please let me know in the comments, because I don't understand how you identify as a building. I can actually get to dragonkin, animalkins. I can get to transgenderism just fine. I can even get to like transracialism. I can get to these things, but going from animate to inanimate, sentient to non-sentient, I don't know what that means, and I would love to. But regardless, even if you identify this way, could you have ever in your life of identifying as a building pictured Google or any employer ever promoting the lifestyle of you as a building? Something that, like, you have to have, right? Like, I get it. You've identified this way internally for several years, maybe your whole life. I don't know. And again, I don't care. Cool, man. I'm glad you express in that way. I read Warhammer books, so I'm not calling anybody out on weird habits, right? I got my own, but like, I haven't met anyone who identifies as a building. So could you imagine ever that you'd end up in a place where promoting identity as a building existed? Because have you ever met anyone else who identifies as a building? And like, if you have several people identifying as buildings, do you have a downtown area with commerce? The more the more freedom goes on, man. The more cool questions and discussions and learning there is to do. For the purpose of discussing sexual topics, how do buildings... Okay, I'm going to stop. Because I could ask questions about what buildings do all day, and I can't do that. I've got to stay on target. The only lifestyle that seems to not be openly discussed on Google's internal forums is traditional heterosexual monogamy. Which I guess maybe because it's boring and everybody knows how it works. But do they? I think we can make a compelling argument that our country has no idea how heterosexual monogamy works because divorce rates are through the roof, birth rates are going down, and there's a stark rise in alternative lifestyles. So I think maybe we've forgotten what heterosexual monogamy looks like, and maybe reductio ad absurdum, right, which we talked about in the last video. Reductio ad absurdum, heterosexual monogamy will eventually become a minority at this rate. Like, that's the logical outcome. Who knows if it's 2 centuries out from now? But the way things have been changing, man, it's interesting. I'm going to identify as a more attractive version of me because I like me. In March of 2017, Google HR strongly suggested to a Google employee that conservative and traditional parenting techniques were unwelcome at Google. What? Google HR brought up the following post that the employee made in response to a Google thread in which someone specifically requested conservative parenting advice. Quote, "If I had a child, I would teach him/her traditional gender roles and patriarchy from a very young age. That's the hardest thing to fix later, and our degenerate society constantly pushes the wrong message." Well, that wasn't inflammatory. Google HR stated, "We did not find that this post on its face violated any of Google's policies, but your choice of words could suggest that you are advocating for a system which men work outside the home and women do not." But... Let me help you. For the vast majority of human history, men worked outside the home and women didn't. Like, advocating for a system that has gotten us to now, to a time of unprecedented peace and prosperity. And listen, y'all, I get it. There are wars, there are bad situations in the world, right? I get it. But man, if you look back in history, it's been, 75 years of peace between major powers? Almost never have we had this level of peace and prosperity in which Western societies especially, we have people spending less of their time and energy and money and resources on food than at any time in history unless they elect to spend more because there are so many options. We have so much food waste, not because people can't afford it, like in a hyperinflated Weimar Republic, right? We have so much extra food in Western society that it goes to waste because people can't buy it fast enough. Like, and not because they're out of money, but because they can't consume anymore. We're the fattest culture in the planet in America. It's great. The fattest culture in history because our consumption of food is so thorough that hunger is almost eliminated. And I don't want to denigrate people who do go hungry in this country. It does happen, but it's a statistical outlier of people who actually go hungry. There is so much extra food that you can get food without buying it if you choose to. Now, you may have to compromise some other values or standards to do so, but think about throughout all of history, this has pretty much never occurred for any period longer than maybe a bumper crop year. It's amazing. So why wouldn't we? Like, not saying that this is the only way to raise children in like a heteronormative, gender-rolled society. I think there are serious problems with the way we do gender roles. Like, I get it. And I think gender roles may lead to some of these other issues. But heteronormative society has built a system of unprecedented peace, prosperity, and growth. Never seen before on the face of the earth. Like, advocating for it only makes logical sense. advocating against it is fine as well. Like, if you want to see something different, if you think we have too many people, great, go ahead. But, okay. All right. Sorry. Men work outside the home and women do not, or that you are advocating for rigid adherence to gender identity at birth. Like, maybe you just believe that people are the gender of their biological sex. I know that might be unpopular, but it's hard to disprove. You can disagree, but disprove is something that's tough on that one. And again, I don't care what anybody does in their life, and I don't think they should be discriminated against. But dear Lord, we trust that neither is what you intended to say. So here's some correct thing coming for you. We are providing you with this feedback so that you can better understand how some Googlers, anybody who uses Googlers should be disregarded in some way, interpreted your statements, and so that you are better equipped to ensure that Google is a place in which all Googlers are able to reach their full potential. And if a Googler dies, you deliver a Googley, right? In other words, Google scolded the Google employee. Now, this is a bit strong, but that's how you word a complaint in a manner favorable to your position. Scolded the Google employee for, among other things, believing that gender identity is set at birth biologically, a position held by the vast majority of the world's populace that Google professes to serve. Now, I don't think this is a scolding, but maybe it is a scolding. It certainly has threatening implications and undertones. We don't believe you were advocating for these things, but we want to let you know that it kind of sounded like it, right? These examples were just a few instances of Google bending over backwards to support liberal views while punishing conservative views. Google has also placed Caucasian males in a lower standing than women and underrepresented minorities. May of 2017, one Google employee discovered and reported several offensive postings attacking Trump supporters and Caucasian males. Stop reporting stuff. Like, I get that this is helpful to the Damore-Guterman case, but if everybody stopped reporting stuff, like, we could all just speak, and that'd be cool. That'd be great. In June 2017, HR responded, quote, "Thanks for your time the other day and sharing your response. We have reviewed the threads that you have sent us and do not find them to be attacking traditionally conservative views, but more extreme alt-right views. So? That seem to teeter into discrimination and possibly incite violence against certain groups of people." Quote, upon information and belief, Google never made any such comments regarding posts supporting the violent vigilante organization Antifa or other extreme leftist anarchist organizations. In fact, a large number of Googlers have set their corporate profile pictures to Antifa insignias as seen in the image below. And we have the Antifa 3 arrows on whoever this profile is. And that's great, right? Antifa, by the way, if you don't know, under Obama, Antifa was listed as a terrorist organization. That didn't really make the news. I'm not sure why. But it didn't make the news. And I am out of Lagavulin, which is just a shame. And I am going to choose not to sully this glass with more scotch, but I am going to switch to bourbon at this point. Should be exhilarating. All right. So this is from the 45th Parallel Distillery. This is bourbon. 92.87 proof. It's from Wisconsin. This is good stuff, man. I'm a big fan. I've got their wheat whiskey, I've got a rye whiskey, and I've got bourbon. I haven't tried the rye, but the wheat whiskey's good, but the bourbon, man, this stuff is it's pretty delicious. These are not sponsored videos, although I'm hoping that Lagavulin will take up a sponsorship. And if they, don't strike while the iron's hot, 45th Parallel, buddy, I'd accept yours as well. All right. Sorry. Google publicly endorsed Blacklists. On or around August 2015, Adam Fletcher, a L6 SRE manager at Google, Jake McGuire, a L7, it should be Ann, right? An L7 SRE manager at Google. And Nori Heikkinen, not to be confused with Heineken, a L6 SRE manager at Google, all publicly endorsed blacklisting conservatives and actively preventing them from seeking employment opportunities at Google. That's not cool, man. Like, let people work. I don't know. Fletcher stated in reference to conservatives who he categorized as, quote, hostile voices, quote, I will never, ever transfer you onto my team. Ever. I don't care if you are perfectly fit or technically excellent or whatever, I will actively not work with you. Even to the point where your team or product is impacted by this decision, I'll communicate why to your manager if it comes up. Fired. In my work, if this guy worked for me, immediately fired. Immediately. If you're going to let your political views detriment the quality of product that my company is producing and paying you to produce, fired. Done. Go home. I don't care about your crybaby little biases, and I don't care that you're offended by someone else. Go home, pack your lunch, pack your bags, never come back, you pile of trash. I don't care. And if he had switched out conservative with liberal, I would say the exact same thing. What a dumb idiot. I will actively not work with you, even to the point where your team or product is impacted by this decision. You're scum and you should go. Your job as a manager is to make the company better by making its employees perform better. Not to have some petty dispute over your pathetic little ideology. Oh, you flipping coward. Who's it? Fletcher. I hope you see this, Adam Fletcher. You're a coward. Sorry. McGuire and Heikkinen responded to Fletcher's comments in agreement and came to his defense, needling a Republican employee who raised concerns about the blacklist. So Nori Heikkinen says, sorry. Nori Heikkinen says, well, that was a depressing sequence of threads to catch up on after being out of office for 3 weeks. This guy tagging Adam Fletcher, this seems pretty hostile. You may think it's fine to be hostile to hostility. Normally I would agree, but I get the feeling that you're applying this to a bunch of people who aren't actually trying to be hostile at all. Intent matters in cases like this. People with good intentions are teachable, or at a minimum you could talk to them and find out where you disagree. I promise that the disagreement is not that they like being hostile. And then Steve Karstenen responds, intent actually does not matter in all cases, and individuals can judge when to allow for good faith and when not. Hope that helps. So I can give you bad faith if I decide to. Jake McGuire tags Adam Fletcher. I'm impressed how calmly and clearly you were able to put this and agree completely. If they're talking about the quoted statement, that's not calm. That's idiotic. Okay, so Steve Karstenen... this anonymous employee tags Steve Carson. Except in this case, people are assuming bad intent and reading something that wasn't actually written because of that false assumption. If you remove intent completely, the statements are completely neutral. And that's how they were actually meant. Instead, people are reading things like, quote, there is no problem here, Google is perfect, when no such thing was written that I'm aware of. And then the same guy tags Jake McGuire. The post is actually actively and intentionally hostile, not to mention bullying and threatening. No idea how you can read it as calm, right? Because any logical person reads that statement as anything other than calm. Reads it as spastic, maybe pitiful and pathetic, but certainly not calm. So Jake McGuire responds, you say you aren't trying to be hostile. Why do you think the post was directed at you? He didn't even say that. Nori Heineken tags the anonymous person. It's pretty ironic that Adam Fletcher is getting accused of hostility in this context. Is it ironic? It's pretty ironic that a Google employee who presumably has access to Google's lexicon doesn't know what irony is. Think about that one for a minute. Anonymous person replies, I don't think I explicitly said that I think the post was directed at me. But I'm almost certain that it was directed at people who think like me, and that, as far as I have seen, haven't actually said anything to warrant this type of reaction. And then Nori Heineken, and that's what I'm going with from now on, the people who have said things to merit this reaction are creating a hostile work environment for their coworkers. And the guy who said he won't hire or promote or even work with them isn't. As a manager, I would also not want anyone on my team who had demonstrated they are unwilling and or unable to provide that basic civil environment to their peers. That's what merits this reaction. Man, I wish we had the original quotes. I wish we do. Because I wager they're not hostile. I wager they're not hostile. I bet they're general, principled statements common to conservatives that are construed hostilely by a pre-existing bias. But that's my pre-existing bias talking. Google's management-sanctioned blacklists were directed at specific Google employees who tactfully expressed conservative viewpoints in politically charged debates. In one case, Jay Gengelbach, who names these people? A L6 SWE manager publicly bragged about blacklisting an intern for failing to change his conservative views. What a scumbag, man. Other employees supported that decision, and one even stated to, quote, throw that bad apple away with no regrets. They were referring to a human being. That's a little hyperbolic. Of course they were referring to a human being, but bad apple is an idiom in the United States that suggests a purple person, a person who is, has the potential to, quote, ruin the whole bunch, right? So here's an exchange. In parentheses, the happy ending intern conversion was unsuccessful, due in part to multiple people providing unsolicited negative feedback on his packet. So here's Matt Beaumont Gay. That's not an insult, that's his name. I was involved in a similar situation 4 or 5 years ago. I was not the intern's host. That duty fell to Chandler Carruth, but I took it upon myself to have the, quote, you have made serious mistakes conversation after the most egregious incident. I believe this intern is now on our, quote, do not even attempt to hire this person ever list. I wonder what serious mistakes they made. Matthew Seidel. Since I was there at the lunch where said intern said the things he did, a number of people there at the time did try to esquire as to what he was basing his belief on. They attempted to lawyer him, esquire? Inquire. Spell. What he was basing his belief on and give counterexamples. They didn't really take. While it's possible, good. A guy has principled beliefs and he's badgered by a bunch of dummies at a table. He shouldn't listen to you. You guys are just idiots. You're idiots who work at a corporation that he's trying to get hired at. Why should he change his entire ethos to whatever you think is correct? You're just a dummy who works at Google. You might be good at something, but you're just any other idiot. Learn it. While it's possible that with a bunch more work, it's possible he wouldn't learn English from you. He would have been reachable across many, many lunches. He showed no improvement or interest in becoming less self-centered. I recall another lunch where he expressed his desire and competence for another job ladder at Google. So someone at lunch in that job ladder asked him a few standard interview questions. He failed every one. What were they, though? Did he learn something from this? Nope. He went on to try to interview for this ladder later. At least that was my understanding. So 1, you don't know, and 2, he stuck to being himself at a job interview. Isn't that what you want? Would you rather him lie? Jesus. I agree fully that I wish I, Jay, or someone else there would have made a more formal attempt to get this person the help that might have turned them around. I'm not sure where we were in a position to really change his opinions. It's not your job to change his opinions, man. Oh my gosh. Jay Gengelbach. Tagging Matthew Seidel. Yeah, I think part of the problem is that a lot of people responded with, quote, you're wrong and here's why, but not with, you will not work at, quote, you will not work at Google with your current attitude. Although he did seem awfully intransigent, I don't think he was aware that there were real consequences for his actions that might have given him the right motivation to change his beliefs, or at least to keep his mouth shut. You don't change core beliefs to work at a place that's hostile to those core beliefs. That's not how belief or conviction or ideology works, right? Like, you're just asking a person to be miserable, and he may have wanted to work at Google, but I would wager if he read this conversation, he would quickly realize the bullet that he dodged, working for you dummies. Shoshana Abras tags all three, Jay Gengelbach, Matthew Seidel, and John Kochmar. Let me alleviate some of your guilt in hindsight. It's very unlikely that logical straight talk... Is it logical? Do you know what that means? I don't know. Would change the mind of a person who not only holds those beliefs... God, I wish I knew what the beliefs were, right? But is confident enough to voice them openly in a work situation, which is more or less an extended interview. In those cases, you should speak up with your own opinion, but more for the sake of bystanders and to reaffirm your beliefs, like put on a show for the audience, right? And in this case, the company's cultural norms, rather than because you hope to change the speaker's opinion. Throw that bad apple away with no regrets. Like, I don't care that this person said bad apple. They're making a fuss about it. But, like, the ultimate thing here is that Google has an openly hostile environment to a certain political perspective. It seems. We don't actually know the context of these statements that were made. We don't know what the content of the statements that were made. And, man, I wish they would have included some of them, right? It says self-centeredness. What if his self-centeredness was, I work really hard and therefore I should be promoted, regardless of my race? How dare he, right? Who knows? But I don't know. I don't know. Kim Burchett, a L7SWE manager. This is a software engineering manager. My buddy Chris Bozeman let me in on the lingo that I don't understand. SWE manager. Proposed creating an online company-wide blacklist of political conservatives inside Google. Well, that's a special kind of person, isn't it? She was kind enough to suggest to her readership that they might deserve, quote, something resembling a trial before being added. Oh, how benevolent, right? That they get subject to the mob's view of the appropriateness of their beliefs. Good Lord. The pretentiousness of these people is beyond the pale, right? Here's the post from Kim Burchett. And I honestly can't tell if Kim is a male or a female. There's a profile picture here. And it's just too low res for me to, it's not a slight to Kim. I just don't know if Kim is male or female. Doesn't matter, right? I'm considering creating a public inside Google document of, quote, people who make diversity difficult. So we'll exclude... These people make diversity difficult, so we'll get rid of their opinions that are different from ours. Maybe you should examine who's making diversity difficult. Please share here any suggestions, criticisms, or words of warning. Here's the word of warning. Don't do it, you idiot. I'm thinking of something like a Google Doc that accepts comments and which calls out those Googlers. See, you already know this person's stupid because they use the word Googlers, who repeatedly make public statements that are unsupportive of diversity, with links to those statements so that the readers can decide for themselves. Except you're setting it up in a context of negative speak. That's like the the papacy publishing a list of heretical terms for the masses to determine if they actually meet the standard of heresy. Well, of course they do. The list will be open to contributions from others, but I personally will be the judge of what is included and what is excluded. How is that crowdsourced? You're saying that you're the sole arbiter. The witch hunter will determine who is a witch, but I'll take suggestions. But ultimately, it's me. It's me and you, but mostly me, right? I will do my best to represent the individuals fairly. You absolutely cannot. You've disqualified your ability to be fairly, compassionate, and in context. You dumb pile of trash. I expect the list to start with just a handful of people, and if it ever grows to more than 0.5% of Googlers, then I will delete it as a failed idea. If you delete yourself as a failed idea. Things I'm still pondering. Should inclusion on the list require something resembling a trial? Who's the jury? A jury of hand-selected by the Inquisition peers? Should people be removed after some period of time if they start behaving better? Right think will correct wrong think over time. Have you read a book? Do you know what a dystopian future looks like? Jeez. We're not moving through this document very fast because I can't imagine that this exists. This is a place. Like, you gotta understand. Google has 80,000 employees and 700 billion in market capitalization. Google is bigger than several countries in market cap and influence. And with 80,000 people, they're bigger than maybe municipalities and townships. If you had an 80,000 person town and ran it like this, it would be a hellish nightmare of mob rule. Think back to revolutionary France, where the masses determined that the aristocracy, who, by the way, like the French aristocracy in the revolution, were not the best people. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to defend them. But they got up and they executed all of them based on status. They executed the children. Anyway, like that's the ultimate outcome. Again, reductio ad absurdum. Eventually, if these people are damaging to Google, you have to throw them out. But what if you can't throw them out anymore? Then you have to kill them, right? On August 7th, 2015, another manager, Colin Winter, posted threats directed at a Google employee as a result of raising concerns of harassment and discrimination to Urs Holzel. Winter stated, quote, "I keep a written blacklist of people whom I will never allow on or near my team based on how they view and treat their coworkers. The blacklist got a little longer today." But is it actually based on how they view and treat their coworkers? Or is it based on your political assumptions? Because one of them is okay and one of them may not be. Also on August 7, 2015, another manager, Paul Cowan, reshared Colin Winter's threat to express his agreement with it and to indicate that he also blacklisted Google employees with perceived conservative views. Cowan stated, "If you express a dunderheaded opinion about religion, about politics, or about social justice," we're talking about deeply held personal convictions and beliefs being considered dunderheaded because you disagree with them. It turns out I am allowed to think you're a halfwit. You are allowed to think they're a halfwit, I suppose. They're also allowed to think that you're an idiot. I'm perfectly within my rights to mentally categorize you in my dickhead box. Yes, I maintain mentally and not yet publicly a blacklist. I'm guessing it's a dickhead box because a blacklist is in brackets. If I had to work with the people on this list, I would refuse and try to get them removed, or I would change teams, or I would quit. Hey, you quit then. You quit. That's the best solution you've had all day. You quit. You quit and go start your own little utopian employment place that can violate the laws so you can get sued like a dummy. The primary purpose of these blacklists and suggested blacklists was to encourage and coordinate the sabotage of promotions, performance reviews, and employment opportunities for those with conservative viewpoints. Well, that's just wonderful. And again, this is a complaint written biased towards the plaintiffs. But do you disbelieve any of it with the quotes? These are quotes with screenshots a lot of times. Do you disbelieve that this environment exists? I didn't disbelieve it before reading this. I don't know if it's illegal yet. I haven't done that much research. I will, in the next video, I'll be researching the actual laws and bringing them in. But I mean, I don't even know if it's illegal. But I believe 100% of the allegations so far, even if they're worded a little hyperbolically. On August 14th, 2015, a small group of employees submitted a complaint to the Senior Vice President of Google HR, Laszlo Bach, and Senior Vice President of Legal, David Drummond, regarding the blacklisting of conservatives at Googlers. The group complained that there was an alarming number of individuals calling for generic firings. Quote, if they expressed certain opinions on socio-political subjects. The email further claimed that this type of suppression, quote, stifles debate and prevents the free exchange of ideas from happening. It's also a legal liability for Google, as this lawsuit shows, right? The email went on to complain about several individuals who had also openly proclaimed that they kept blacklists of Googlers. Guys, don't use Googlers. They refused to work with on the basis of their political views. As evidenced by the fact that blacklisting posts remain live on Google's internal corporate network, it is clear that Google took no action to prevent blacklisting. Google seems to ignore most cases and occasionally, quote, coach the worst offenders. However, Google will not openly come out against this practice. Instead, it relies on crowdsourced harassment and pecking to enforce social norms, including politics, that it feels it cannot write directly into its policies. Scumbags. You gotta, like, the legal team's gotta quash this. You've gotta quash this to protect the company. But I have a feeling that Google thinks it's above repudiation. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they've done a legal analysis and determined that they're fine. But even if you haven't, or even if you have determined that you're fine, like, it's in the company's best interest to not do this. Google provides internal tools to facilitate blacklisting. Google's internal company systems allowed employees and managers to maintain a block list of other employees with whom they did not wish to interact. For example, if A adds B to her block list, B is not able to look A up in the company directory, communicate with A through the internal instant messaging system, view A's contact information or management chain, or see A's posts on internal social media. A and B would not be able to work together constructively on an engineering project if either person blocked the other. This is a terrible idea. Just speaking, as someone who's in the corporate world, you have to work with people you don't like all the time. There's thousands of people. Some of them are going to be stupid. You have to work with them. Doesn't matter. It's common knowledge within Google that employees were habitually added to block lists for expressing conservative political views. In these comments, employees and managers discussed using block lists to sabotage other Googlers' job transfers onto their teams. Here's Stephanie Van Dyke. I used to have a list written down. It was entitled Stephanie's Shit List, but it was hard to keep in sync with my G+ block list, so I deprecated the former and just used the latter. Now, I would never, in a professional corporate setting, use profanity on a public messaging system. That's so weird to me that people do that. It would never occur to me to do that. I guess, but it just seems highly unprofessional. I occasionally use profanity. I don't care, but in a professional setting, I would really hesitate. Personally, this is better because when I added something to that list, I would have to look at the other names already on it, and that would make me sad. Oh, you poor thing. A G+ block list is just a black hole, and you only have to look at it if you want to. So in a response, are such blacklists allowed at Google? I'm not a manager, so I don't know what the specific restrictions are for adding people to a team beyond what's taught in interview training. That's interesting, right? So this might be at odds with the interview training. So then here's another anonymous person. I would talk to legal before assembling a list of people who are possibly creating a hostile workplace. And now I know that if I ever sue Google for harassment, I should demand to see all managers' shit lists. Yes. Yes, you should. And man, if this goes to discovery, won't that be damning? Oh, that'll be great. To see if this was something management already knew and thus let happen. My tormentor could be on there and not dealt with. It would probably increase the settlement award considerably. Yeah, right? Whew. I mean, I would encourage anyone else getting mistreated at Google to do the same. Good list, man. As a manager, you should either deal with the situation or not. Don't write down, I let this happen, which, although IANAL, I don't even know. I don't even want to think about what that means. I-anal. Sounds to me like what a manager's shit list of this kind is. If the behavior is this bad, this person spelled behavior with a U, so they're not American. It's a joke. It's a joke. Europeans spell behavior with a U. Americans spell it with just an O. Why aren't you dealing with it? The standard you walk past is the standard you accept. Right? Is this something you would want seen on the front page of the New York Times? Well, buddy, now it's public. Ade Oshinai. Ade Oshinai. I'm guessing on that pronunciation. Buddy, if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sort of sorry. He responds to the anonymous poster, technically, we all maintain such lists in the form of the people we have blocked on internal Google+. Why do you block anyone, you pathetic cowards? Jeez, is an opinion that damaging to you? In my case, it's meant that I'm much happier since there are all sorts of people whose existence I've been able to forget. Whew. When employees are blocked by a manager in another department in retaliation for reporting misconduct, Google HR defended the practice of blacklisting coworkers, stating, quote, "Thanks for sharing this. Coworkers are allowed to control who can access their social media accounts, like G+ and Hangouts. Unless your inability to access John's social media accounts is negatively impacting your ability to do your job," and it always is. By default, if a manager has blocked you, even from another department, it impacts your ability to do your job, because if you need to contact that management chain, you can't. You can't. And then you have to waste company resources going around the block to find out how to contact them. We don't find any information to suggest that John is retaliating against you in violation of policy. He's retaliating against you in violation of logic and company interest, whether it's policy or not. You can have a policy that says enslave dark people. That doesn't make it okay, you idiots. On a separate occasion, another Googler posted, "Another day, another entry on a blacklist I wish wasn't necessary to keep." It's not necessary to keep. This is reported to Google HR. Google HR responded to that employee. Blank, quote, "was just expressing his own personal opinion on who he likes working with. Therefore, we did not find his comments to violate Google policy." At a TGIF all-hands-on meeting on October 26, 2017, an employee directly asked executives about the appropriateness of employees keeping political blacklists. Kent Walker, the senior vice president of legal, dodged the question rather than repudiating the practice of blacklisting. I bet Kent Walker didn't want to get blacklisted either. On September 8th, 2017, a group of conservative employees met with Paul Manuel, Google's CEO, Sundar Pichai's chief of staff, to raise concerns about the ongoing problem of politically motivated blacklisting, bullying, and discrimination at Google. And if you remember the timeline, James Damore was fired, I think, on August 10th. So this is just under a month after that. This is in the news. It's coming to a head. This meeting was a direct response to the company's handling of the Damore situation. Oh, I guess I could have just read that instead of being enlightening. Conservative employees shared their own experiences with discrimination and asked the management for 3 major reforms. First, they asked for clarity around communication policies, recommending that Google publish a clearer statement on what is acceptable and unacceptable employee communication. That's reasonable, by the way. If you're going to say that something is unacceptable communication, tell them what it is, with specificity and clarity. But they don't want to do that because it might be illegal, right? And that any and all complaints about communication be adjudicated through, quote, "a documented, fair, transparent, and appealable process." Absolutely. This is reasonable as well. You're talking about people's livelihoods being destroyed because they hold wrongthink. In the meeting, the employees pointed out that a company leadership was sending mixed messages on whether it was even permissible to criticize diversity policies. Second, the employees requested protection from retaliation, asking leadership to make a public statement that conservatives and supporters of Damore would not be punished in any way for their political stances. Good luck. They just fired Damore. Third, the conservative employees asked the company to make it clear that the hostile language and veiled threats directed at Damore and his supporters were unacceptable. In the interest of making Google a healthier environment for employees of all political stripes, the managers and VPs who made such statements should retract them. On information and belief, none of those reforms ever took place. In or around October 2017, a number of diversity activists at Google indicated they had met with VPs Danielle Brown and Eileen Naughton in order to ensure that they would be able to continue blacklisting and targeting employees with whom they had political disagreements. We want to make sure it's okay for us to go ahead and do this, potentially in violation of law thing. On October 22nd, 2017, a conservative employee asked HR to help put him in contact with company leadership to discuss the issue of targeted political harassment. This request was acknowledged by Employee Relations on October 31st. On December 22nd, Employee Relations indicated to the employee they would not be following up on his concerns about the systemic problems he raised, and they considered the matter closed. It's a shame, man. I'm being harassed for my political views. Will you guys please help at least mediate this? No. Okay. Google maintains secret blacklists of conservative authors. On August 26, 2016, Curtis Yarvin, a well-known conservative blogger who has reportedly advised Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel, and other members of the Trump administration, visited the Google office to have lunch with an employee. This triggered a silent alarm, alerting security personnel to escort him off the premises. That, if true, is maybe not illegal, but certainly just pathetic. Here's the alert. Possible unexpected guest. Ticket type, physical security. Attention GSOC, an individual with a name matching the Google watch list. This person's opinions are dangerous. They might convert people to their ways. Oh my gosh. Is registered in the guest.google guest management system. Guest Curtis Yarvin, host blank. The employee's name is redacted. Visit date 2016-8/26. Visit time 1 p.m. Location USSFO SPE 4. Address 345 Spear Street, 4th floor, San Francisco. Visit ID. I'm not going to read that. Please follow protocols based on the prescribed actions for this type of guest. Please note this person has a similar name, but may not be the actual person on the watch list. Oh my gosh. You received this message because you're subscribed to the Google Group's guest security group. To unsubscribe, blah, blah, blah. It was later discovered that other influential conservative personalities, including Alex Jones and Theodore Beale, are also on the same blacklist. Well, I can't believe we're on a blacklist. Google's involved with the deep state, and they maintain blacklists of all sorts of types. Anybody who doesn't agree that the hormones in the water are turning frogs gay, they're definitely on the blacklist. On or about September 15th, 2016, a Google employee asked HR if writers could be removed from the blacklist. I've seen your hernia. Sorry, HR refused to help with the request and instead reconfigured the internal system so that it was no longer possible to see who was on the blacklist. Hide it. That'll work. Google allowed employees to intimidate conservative with threats of termination. This is long, man. And I can't even get through it fast because it's so ridiculous. Like, I can't skim this. Every detail is a juicy detail, as far as I'm concerned. I hope you feel the same way. In the midst of any heated political discussion at Google, it has become commonplace to see calls for conservatives to be fired or encouraged for work elsewhere for cultural fit reasons. I found a church that discriminated based on cultural fit, and I wanted to punch him in the teeth, man. Cultural fit is disgusting. Get over your little echo chamber. Googlers are extremely proud of the fact that the company has created a, quote, shared culture of shared beliefs. How shared can it be? And openly discriminates against job applicants who do not share the same political ideology. One Google employee referring to two conservative Googlers who criticized a feminist blog post. How dare you speak against the prophet? In July, August 2015 stated, quote, maybe we should just try laying off these people, please. Dear tags, maybe we should just try laying off these people, please. Anonymous quotes, they got a link, I don't know. Then Stephanie Van Dyke, who we saw earlier. Van Dyke? I don't know which one sounds more offensive. Pick that one. Interesting confusion over the phrase laying off. Was Andy calling for the folks on the thread to be fired or other folks to give them a break and stop being so harsh? Andy Carell. Yeah, that didn't come across clearly. I was trying to play on the words in tags. I'll be blunt. I meant there are a select few that I'm fairly certain should just be fired and we would be a better company for it. You're on the list. Automatically. If you suggest another person be fired other than for a direct violation of policy or physical safety dangers, real, not falsely constructed physical safety dangers to employees, then you should be fired. This isn't a, quote, political disagreement. Their judgment about what is going to hurt coworkers is incredibly awful, and they are willfully blind to what they are doing wrong with their serial shit posting to wide audience lists. Gosh, I hope we get these. I hope we get these in Discovery. They're causing more talented people than themselves to leave or want to leave with their bullshit. Are they more talented? Do you know? Have you produced a quantitative analysis of their talent levels? And have you produced any evidence that these people are leaving? I mean, maybe they are. Other Google employees also suggested terminating employees with conservative values that did not comport with their own. One even suggested firing an employee twice, simply to get the point across. Conservatives were not welcome at Google. Quote, Chris Lewis. Why aren't we firing people? I'm not being rhetorical. This is a serious question. We're a company who's worked hard to create a shared culture of shared beliefs. Except you're not creating a shared culture of shared beliefs. You're creating a monoculture of monotheistic beliefs. Monolithic, theocratic. I'm going to call it a religion. We don't hire people who don't meet those beliefs in interviews. Why aren't we firing people who are creating a toxic workplace? Bonus points. If someone uses the word toxic unironically, they're stupid. Can someone enlighten me? And I'm being frank, they're stupid. Like toxic, there isn't a toxic opinion. Get over it. Ignore it. Fight against it. If you can't out-argue their opinion, maybe you're deficient. Many Google employees resorted to name-calling. I'm name-calling now, right? You're deficient. Let me see. Chris Lewis, you're deficient and a coward and pathetic. I don't know you, but you are. Demonstrated right here on my screen. Many Google employees resorted to name-calling. One called conservative Google employees that reported the discrimination they faced to Google HR poisonous assholes. Like, how dare they? How dare they conduct, how dare they talk to HR? Employees stated that Google knew who the, quote, assholes were. Not my language. And again, who uses this in a professional setting? Like, I'm just baffled by it. I never encountered this. I mean, I met professional people who would use profanity in speech, but never in writing. That's mind-blowing to me, and I guess I've been out of the game too long. And that they could be easily replaced. Several conservative employees reported this to Google HR, but Google HR replied that this hateful rhetoric was not a policy violation. Chris Lewis, coward and turd, says, can we just fire the poisonous assholes already? It's not like we don't know who they are. Quote, parenthetical, it's not Mike. I don't know who Mike is. And it's not like we can't replace him. We love to dump people out of an interview if they vaguely don't meet culture fit. By the way, you shouldn't say that. Because not meeting culture fit could be impermissible discrimination. Documenting this stuff is stupid. This is why you're an idiot. But when someone is hired and clearly, publicly, and repeatedly act like an asshole, we suddenly can't do anything about it. Yeah, you can't, actually, because there are laws protecting employment. There are labor laws. They're less stringent on hiring than they are on employment. Like, that you don't know this basic fact just tells me that you are a dummy. Stephen Johnson replies, after we fire this person, we should rehire them just so we can fire them a second time for emphasis. And the fact that you think that would be okay, and I get it, you're probably making a joke and being hyperbolic, but that would expose Google to so much more liability than they're already being exposed to by your dumb comments. You dumb idiots. Google enabled discrimination against Caucasian males. Liz Fong Jones, an L5, they used an appropriately here, an L5 SRE manager at Google repeatedly discriminated against Caucasian males. On April 4th, 2015, bourbon, man. Americans did something very right with bourbon. I guess Kentuckians. On April 4th, 2015, a Caucasian male posted a comment about, quote, diversity town hall meeting in which management stated that affirmative action was impractical from a legal standpoint. Fong Jones responded that she, quote, could care less about being unfair to white men. You already have all the advantages in the world. Except at Google, right? So not all of the advantages, like internally inconsistent statement. Anonymous says, I agree with the town hall statement. I've yet to see effective, quote, increasing diversity efforts which do not bring unfairness against white men, e.g. lowering the hiring bar for minorities or arranging events where white men are or feel excluded. Liz Fong Jones, frankly, I could care less about being unfair to edited to add cisgender, straight, able-bodied, wealthy white men. I guess any other white men? I don't know. You already have all the advantages in the world. Anonymous replies, we will not agree on that. Malcolm Rowe, a.k.a. straight white male, the lowest difficulty setting there is. And they're not referring to the South Park game because that wasn't out in 2015, right? And again, These are fact-specific, like the difficulty setting of someone's life is fact-specific. My life has not been difficult. But you go to Appalachia and you tell me that life is not difficult for white Caucasian men. It absolutely can be. This is nonsense. The fact that the first comment on this post is a microaggression. Microaggressions are fake. I'm sorry. They're fake. You can't microaggress someone. You can either aggress them or not. And if you're not intending to aggress them, it's just a misunderstanding, not a microaggression. Speaks volumes about the cultural problem at Google. You guys are the cultural problem at Google. You're unaccepting of a dissenting opinion. Liz Fong Jones tags Anon. I understand that we're not going to agree and you are entitled to your own opinions. Are they, though? I'm not sure that they are anymore. However, I'd wish you'd considered how I might receive the remarks before you made them. Did you consider how you received the remarks before you made them? That's a double standard. You dumb idiot. Frank Mahar tags Anon. Speaking as a white man. Oh, this is going to be good, right? You're actually speaking as not a white man. You're speaking as anything as far removed from a white man as you can. When you open that statement, let me give you a tip on rhetoric, okay? If I say, speaking as a non-Trump supporter, then I'm immediately setting myself up to support President Trump. If I say, speaking as a white man, I'm almost guaranteed to set myself up as the antithesis of white men. Let's see if my thesis is correct. I haven't actually read this before. I could be wrong, but speaking as a white man, well, I can't say here what I really want to say. Why can't you? Which would involve some very NSFW language. So let me just say that you and those like you are not just part of the problem, you're most of the problem. So again, speaking as a white man, but not in favor or on behalf of any white man I've ever met. And again, I'm the last person to give a crap about anybody's race. I literally don't care about you outside of your ability to help me get what I'm after. If I'm in a corporate setting, I'm trying to take you and your specific list of talents and maximize my promotability and publicity in the corporation. And if you're not doing this in the corporate world, you're stupid, right? You should be constantly trying to maximize your performance. Even if you're altruistically working on behalf of the company, maximize your effectiveness for the benefit of the company. If that company's effectiveness is maximized by you being philanthropic, maximize your philanthropic ability by leveraging the people around you who have money and taking that money in and then philanthropically disposing it amongst people who are in need. This is not hard. Everyone acting in their own rational self-interest is the most effective outcome. Acting against your rational self-interest is nonsensical. Because when enough people act in their own rational self-interest, everyone around them prospers. Because if you prosper, the people in your immediate vicinity prosper. A good capitalist makes his own money, makes himself rich. A great capitalist makes everyone around him rich. Learn from people like never mind. I'm going to have to do a whole nother video on capitalism. Jesus. And let me remind you of the adage, quote, it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. Well, you didn't follow that average, you flipping fool. Frank Mahar, you're a fool. I wish I could apologize to Erica Baker and all the rest of the women and minorities that this person, so this is not a person, has insulted, but I can't. Why can't you? You just tagged her. You stupid pile of garbage. You literally have a public forum with which to apologize to these people, but you're too idiotic to understand it. All I can do is speak out against this kind of blinkered, pig, ignorant BS. I'm gonna say it effeminately. Not to degrade women, but to degrade Frank Mahar, the least white Caucasian person I could think of. I don't even know what a non-white Caucasian person, like the antithesis of that, would be. It certainly isn't of any other man or any other ethnicity. It's just a pile of primordial goo and patheticness and self-hating disgust that I can't even articulate what it amounts to. All I can do is speak out against this kind of blinkered pig ignorant BS and try to fart it as hard as I can by posting on our internal social media. Ugh. You can just hear the reeing going on. As others have said, if you're a woman and or a minority and you need an advocate or just someone to talk to, I'm here and willing to go to bat for you at any time by posting on social media. Can you stand 5 seconds of conversation with this pseudo pathetic person? Like, oh my gosh, this, I gotta stop. I don't know Frank Mahar, but I can tell that Frank Mahar is the weakest, limpest advocate you could possibly have on your side. What good would he ever do for anyone being this pitiful? Ugh. Dozens of other employees joined the conversation to insult and belittle the Caucasian male, characterizing his concerns about workplace discrimination as, quote, stupid goddamn devil's advocate bullshit. Can you just imagine the people doing this? Like, would they ever say this in person? If they're standing across from you, would they say it to your face? Because I guarantee you, if I was standing across from Frank Mahar, I would call him a coward and a pathetic excuse for humanity to his face. Because I'm not afraid. And I won't shy away from judgment. And you shouldn't either, because we all internally judge people and externally judging them is only healthy. Judgment isn't inherently wrong. Judgment based on the wrong conditions is wrong. This received hundreds of, quote, upvotes from other Googlers showing their approval. And they are Googlers, right? Because Googlers are idiots. I'm going to just say it. Colin McMillan. Let's see what this upstanding excuse for a human can be. Here's another thing. You're here posting devil's advocate troll bullshit. Is it trolling if they're expressing a genuine opinion? Isn't that the opposite of trolling? Along the vague lines of, quote, oh no, some hypothetical white man is just barely above the hiring bar, might be intangibly harmed by some Googlers who decide to give marginally more training or education to non-Googler women. That's not actually who's being hurt. Like, facially, you're hurting qualified, non-hypothetical white Caucasian males. Meanwhile, we have established pattern of actual Googler women who have, quote, been at the company for years, and as far as we know, performing admirably in their actual engineering jobs, leaving the company in part because of this stupid goddamn devil's advocate bullshit. Then why don't you tell the liberal, pathetic managers who maintain Blacklists to promote the women based on their admirable performance? Why don't they do it? Why do they need all these false systems? Why do they need false discrimination if they're not going to promote the women? Are the women actually performing at the level? Maybe they are. And if not, maybe you should look at the gender discrimination amongst the management who is failing to promote the qualified women above the qualified men. Or are they not as qualified? You flat out say they're not, you coward. Leaving the company in part because of this stupid goddamn devil's advocate bullshit, because you couldn't come up with an original thing to say. You had to quote yourself. That shows up every time they talk honestly about their own goddamn experiences at work. This is why we say, quote, you are part of the problem. No! The management failing to promote the women is the problem. Because lower level employees expressing their concern over discrimination don't have hiring authority that the managers who are not fulfilling that hiring authority do. You're contributing to a culture that drives out women who are otherwise strong Google contributors, all for, quote, fake internet points. On an internal system, you can't be for fake internet points, you stupid dummy. Caucasian male employee's own manager replied to chastise him and to promise that he would be punished for his apostasy. That's hyperbolic. But it fits the narrative, right? This is a theocracy. Look at it. Look at it. I'm really sorry for all who got offended by Anand's comments. It was flagged to me. I'm Anand's manager and HR. It is not acceptable behavior, and I do treat this seriously. What did he say? What did he say that's so dangerous? I don't want to extend my comment here before it gets resolved on the official channels. Thanks for understanding. Shut up, you coward. Ilana Gaweda. Ugh. Ugh. These people. These people. In a follow-up conversation, Fong Jones, that winner, doubled down on her position, stating that the benefit to everyone as a whole justifies discrimination against white men. What kind of idiot would publish this? 14th Amendment, you stupid cow. Quoting Helder Batista, in the context of a discussion about whether we should engage in work to support people who are not white and or not men in technology, I think my comment was absolutely reasonable. I feel that if there is any harm to the interests of white men from that work, it is more than made up for by the benefits to everyone else as a whole. Except that the 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection to all people under the law, which means that any stupid discrimination law against race logically must include white, and against gender logically must include men. So by you publishing this stuff, you're exposing Google to risk, and you should be fired for exposing them to that risk. If anyone should be silent about their beliefs, it's people like you. Because when you publish this stuff, it's discoverable. And good Lord, Google's got a fun discovery process available, right? When Fong Jones was reported to Google HR, Google's initial reaction was to state that since Fong Jones was responding, quote, to some pretty insensitive comments. Was she really? From other colleagues and reacting to an environment that we know have been less than friendly to women and minorities at times, that her behavior was taken out of context and excused her comments. Not true. Google HR then stated that, quote, some empathy could be valuable as you reflect on the conversations. Jesus Christ. It was only after the matter continued to escalate that Google HR finally took, quote, action, which they claimed ranged from, quote, coaching to warnings. Chris Bucell, a manager in the search organization, has frequently urged other Googlers to engage in discriminatory practices to improve diversity. On April 9th, 2017, Bucell posted a message suggesting that employees should leverage Google's influence to have, quote, cheesy white males removed from speaker lineups at conferences. Open gender discrimination is not good to publish in internal employment documents. You dumb idiots. Why isn't legal on this from severely a risk management perspective? Not even like if legal agrees against discrimination, but if legal is pro-discrimination against white males, they should be anti-publication of said discrimination. Invited to speak externally. Wield your influence for good. Next time you get invited to speak at a conference, especially if you're a white male, ask the organizer to confirm you're the only white male in the panel / in the speaker lineup. Why? Why? What if you're one of those stupid, pathetic white males who advocates against white malehood? Like, shouldn't you be first in line to speak on the diversity panel? If not, say you're honored but must decline and give the reason. Absolutely not. Act in your own self-interest. Declining a public speaking position is against your rational self-interest. Don't listen to these idiots. And because you're at Google, guess what? They're going to change the panel for you. You'll feel bad about inconveniencing them, but not that bad. No, you shouldn't feel bad about inconveniencing them. You should feel bad about crippling yourself in your career advancement. When the cheesy white male executive is in the, quote, green room and glaring at you because he was bounced for the panel in favor of a woman on his team, you'll feel pretty damn smug. Will you? Or you won't. You'll feel bad that you might have put her in a tough spot. No, you shouldn't ever feel bad. Feel good that on your merits you are invited to speak at a corporate event. Or you won't. You'll feel bad that and you'll go above and beyond to make the schmucky senior dude. I know this is nuanced. I know it's a burden to be a woman and to have to do these speeches. To have to do these speeches. To get invited to do a speech which will advance your career. Oh my God, it's not a burden. It's an honor. If you think it's a burden, don't do it. Because maybe you don't want to be advanced. But if you... let me give you some personal professional advice. If you get advanced to speak on company-wide stuff and you're at all comfortable publicly speaking, or even if you're not, but you're amenable to coaching and treatment, take it. There's a reason they want to hear from you. Tell your peers about your expertise. Everybody has influence in their small sphere of influence. Take it, run with it, make your sphere bigger. You are exceptional in some way, and take it and be better and make the people around you better. Oh my gosh, why am I having to tell people this? To be the poster child for diversity in tech. That's not what they're doing. You're reducing them to a gender when they actually probably, like, you're advocating reducing people to gender when they may have expertise that is valuable to those around them. You're a scumbag. You misogynist pile of garbage. But on balance, I'd rather have the conference organizer try harder than not at all. Go eat a cinder block, you weak, pathetic human. Never accept, even if you are overtly chosen for discriminatory purposes, never accept those purposes beyond the merit that you bring. If you are chosen because you are the most minority building identifying person, you ignore the basis for your choosing and you bring you to the flipping table. I feel like freaking Billy Mays here coming at you with some personal advice. Everybody has something to offer. And if you get the opportunity to offer that to the next dummy in the room, you walk out there and you flipping offer it. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You know that there are people who are stupid next to you, so make them better. For your own benefit, if nothing else. But, dear Lord, I can't believe these people with so much self-loathing that they would suggest that only a gender or an identity merited the selection of a speaker. Dear God, their hatred for humanity makes me want to punch him in the mouth. I'm going to calm down. My glass of bourbon is almost gone. I'm going to have to really think about having another one because I got to get up in the morning and go talk to some other people and put my expertise out there, and more importantly, observe and absorb theirs, because every person can teach you something. And if you don't understand this, you're a flipping sociopath. End it all. Bucel's anti-white male decree was reported to HR on April 21st, 2017. On May 4th, 2017, HR replied and said, regarding your concern about Chris Bucel's G+ post, we've reviewed and do not find that it violates our policies. How flipping surprising is that at this point? You may, of course, feel free to provide him with feedback about this post. Yeah, call him a flipping stupid idiot. That would be helpful. Google was unable to respond to logical arguments. Yeah, I'm not surprised about that at all, because when you create a theocracy, logic goes out the window. But not out the window as fast as dissidents go out the window, am I right? Oh my God. Excuse me. On November 15th, 2015, a Google employee complained to Google HR regarding a highly offensive post from the employee in a developer product group. The post stated, hold on, before I get to that, if you wonder why I'm jumping through chronology here, it's because with each new subheading, they start back at the beginning of their chronology, going back usually like within 2 years, because this is within like probably, I don't actually know, but likely within the statute of limitations, right? They're not going to take a 6-year-old comment and be able to hold Google accountable, but 2-year-old? Possibly. The post stated that, quote, if you put a group of 40-something white men in a room together and tell them to come up with something creative or innovative, they'll come back and tell you how enjoyable the process was and how they want to do it again, but they came up with, wow, fuck all as a result. Emphasis added. Can you ever imagine using this language in a professional setting? Ever. Can you imagine using fuck all in a professional setting? I can't. That's where Google is now. The Google employee stated that this statement was a violation of the Google Code of Conduct. It has to be. It's openly discriminatory and was creating a hostile workplace environment as it targeted Caucasians, males, and individuals over the age of 40, which I'm guessing is a large percentage of Google workers, by the way. Google HR responded, quote, given the context of the post and that the employee's main point is to highlight that it is helpful to have diverse perspectives, it doesn't appear the post too sick, because "to" is inappropriate there, that the post violates our policies. That's what they should have said. But they have an errant "to" in there. But, I mean, can you imagine? Let's just switch it. If you put a group of 40-something black men in a room together and tell them how to come up with something creative or innovative, they'll come back and tell you how enjoyable the process was and how they want to do it again, but they couldn't come up with anything. Immediately racist, offensive, insensitive, immediately. That is the converse thesis test. I don't even know. Converse variable, inverse variable test, whatever it's called, it doesn't matter. You get the idea. Take white, switch it with black. Take men, switch it with women. If you do those things and the statement becomes offensive, it was offensive to start with. Perplexed. Google, and he should be perplexed. The Google employee responded to Google HR by placing the term 40-something white men with women. Oh my God, he did it! The madman! And asked how that was not a breach of conduct. Google failed to respond. Hi, Josh. Thanks for your reply. If I understand the policy correctly, then would it be acceptable for someone to post a sentiment along these lines? If you put a group of women in a room together and tell them to come up with something creative or innovative, they'll come back and tell you how enjoyable the process was and how they want to do it again, but they come up with fuck all as a result. Assuming, of course, that the main point is to highlight that it's helpful to have diverse perspectives. Like that guy's fired. Google's lack of response and engagement evidenced Google's biases and its inability to even recognize them when someone pointed them out. This is obviously and facially true. As demonstrated above, Google allowed individuals to insult and discriminate against political conservatives, Caucasians, and males with impunity. A perfect example of Google's relaxed attitude towards discrimination against Caucasians and males is seen in Burchett. Kim Burchett. Remember this person? G+ post. As seen below, Burchett states that in the promotions committee in which it's a female, okay, gotcha, in which she serves on, where she helps decide which T5 engineers are promoted to the T6 level, she stated, 2/4 committee members were women. Yay, 4 out of 4 committee members were white. Boo. 12 out of 15 candidates were white men. Boo. Further in the thread, Burchett highlights the divisiveness of her original post by noting that if it were not fair to even talk about women when people of color weren't getting enough airtime in the discussion. So there's that post. In the T5, T6 promo committee I served on, 2 out of 4 were women, yay. 4 out of 4 were white, boo. So this is even discriminating against white women. 12 out of 15 candidates were white men, boo. Nina Kang, can you share what percent of packets were women? Kim Burchett, Nina Kang, I could, but since Google already focuses an awful lot on women to the exclusion of people of color, I'd rather not. Nina Kang, understood, respect. Avery Pinarun, whereas the committee I was on, 0 out of 4 committee members were women, 0 out of 4 packets were women, and I'm not very good at telling which people are white or not. Huh? I don't even know what that means, but whatever. Upon information and belief, Burchett continued to make hiring and promoting decisions at Google and was not reprimanded by Google, even though Burchett's posts were reported to Google HR and to Senior Vice President of Legal in a formal complaint. These examples make it clear that 1. Google discriminates against conservatives, Caucasians, and males, and 2. Google has fostered an environment in which this kind of mistreatment is not only allowed, commonplace, accepted, but is in fact encouraged, enabled, and rewarded. This seems facially obvious, right? I will be interested to see Google's response in this. And if I have to say Google a few more times, I'm gonna light my hair on fire. Google's diversity policies impede internal mobility and new hires. 6 pages left, y'all. Sorry that this is going slow, but I'm getting pissed off. Another Google employee who first began working for Google over a decade ago as a software engineer has suffered similar discrimination, harassment, and retaliation for his perceived conservative views, his gender, and his Caucasian race. From 2008 to 2016, the Google employee was able to move from one team to another with ease after a project was canceled or completed, and during this 8-year time period, he transferred between approximately 5 different teams. Cool. Although the Google employee moved from team to team at Google, the Google employee consistently received at least meets expectations after his promotion in 08 to 15, with one needs improvement rating in 2015, a month after taking bereavement leave to mourn the death of his grandmother. When the Google employee learned that a project he was working on was moving to another country, he began looking for a new team to join as he had done numerous times in the past. However, this time it was much more difficult. The Google employee reached out to more than 10 different hiring managers, but few seemed interested in having him join their team, and only one had extended a firm offer by the end of January 2017. Upon information and belief, the Google employee was not selected due to the fact that the hiring managers were looking solely for, quote, diverse individuals, and as a Caucasian male, the Google employee did not help fill their mandatory and illegal quotas, because quotas based on race tend to be illegal. The Google employee was otherwise completely qualified for the positions for which he applied. This discrimination was confirmed a few days later. Uh-oh! Do you have documentation? On February 2nd, 2017, the Google employee's former director initiated a, quote, diversity team kickoff with the intent to freeze headcount so that teams could find diversity candidates to help them fill the empty roles. Google was specifically looking for women and non-Caucasian individuals to fill the roles. In a further display of disregard for the law, Charles Mendes, an engineering director at Google, informed his team that he was, quote, freezing headcount so that he could reserve further open positions for diverse candidates. Mendes stated, quote, for each position we have open, work on getting multiple candidates, including a diversity candidate. Add a comma after open, you degenerate non-English syntax and grammar using person. He then went on to state, often the first qualified candidate is not a very diverse candidate. Waiting to have a few qualified candidates and being patient is important. This is no, shouldn't it be the most qualified candidate? Finding the most qualified candidate is important, whether they're diverse or not. Whatever. This discrimination against Caucasians and males was not only allowed at Google, but was supported and actively encouraged. Facing the threat of termination unless he met a looming March 2017 transfer deadline imposed by HR, the Google employee was finally able to secure a position with the team in the ads and commerce product area. So not only, and this is important, not only are they making it difficult for employees to move laterally or vertically, they're giving a mandatory movement directive. Like, you must move by this date or you're fired. That's crazy. All right. I'm going to have just a half shot here of the wheat whiskey because I've got a little more document to go through. And you got to fuel it with a little bit of grain alcohol, right? Oh, my gosh. The team was a new area for Google employee. Hopefully he's still working there and he can help me get ad revenue. But his supervisor praised his work and his ability to learn in the new field so quickly. On around April 17th, a few months after he started working with his new team, the Google employee's reviewing manager stated in a written performance review, quote, the Google employee has ramped up fast on ML, a new area for him, and his manager further told the Google employee that he was on track to receive either an exceeds or strongly exceeds expectations rating in his next performance cycle. Good job, buddy. The Google employee was further told during his weekly one-on-one meetings with his manager. Weekly one-on-ones with your manager? Ugh. Gosh, that sounds atrocious. Pro tip, work for yourself, have a one-on-one with yourself, and have a bottle of scotch with it. That he was doing fine work. The Google employee's manager had no complaints or issues to discuss with him. Although the Google employee was coming along nicely in his new team, he did not feel that it was a good fit due to lack of coding involved, and he was frustrated with the pace of bureaucracy on the team. Therefore, the Google employee reached out to Stephen Gillett of the Google X team, whom he had previously corresponded with back when the Google employee was leaving one of his previous teams. Gillett was receptive to the idea of re-engaging with the Google employee for the purposes of transferring him over, connected him to a few other members of the team, including Will Robinson, danger, the hiring manager of Google X. While the Google employee was in the middle of discussing the transfer, Damore's memo began going viral. On August 4th, 2017, the Google employee commented in support of Damore's memo in its defense of the conservative ideology. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you for raising this important issue, James. All too often, I believe this subject is portrayed very one-sidedly here at Google and with real consequences for those who dare to question the dominant narrative. Oh, goodness. I'm guessing he's done. The Google employee then went on vacation, and after that until approximately August 15th. Whoa! When you go on vacation and come back to find Hitler has taken over Germany. Maybe we should stay gone. Does not look good, yeah? While the Google employee was out of the office, his director sent an organization-wide email encouraging all employees to attend, quote, Ads Diversity and Inclusion Week, while simultaneously condemning Damore's memo, stating that, quote, misogyny and racism are not, quote, political views. But, I mean, misogyny and racism might actually be political views, right? Is it that hard to think of a political party? I can think of the Democrat Party in 1960 as one built literally on misogyny and racism. Why would these not be political views? I don't get it. Even if you accept at their face value that these people are misogynistic and racist, stating that they're not political views is pretty ignorant in the scope of most of human history. This is from Mike Schulman. Hi all, I actually drafted this email out last week and encouraged folks to come take part in the Ads Diversity and Inclusion Week coming up in 7 days! ! I still plan to encourage participation, so hold tight. Aren't you encouraging participation? That said, a lot has happened between last Friday and today. To jump right in, I've read the document and have personally found the premise repulsive. What premise? That men and women are different and Google should maybe tailor its hiring practices to these differences so they don't run afoul of the law by creating illegal quotas, but rather fulfill their diversity needs in legal ways? That's repulsive to you? And the argument's intellectually dishonest. I mean, if you said it, it must be true, right? I feel it propagates harmful and invalid stereotypes. Which ones? And advances a misunderstanding on how Google or any technology company operates. Please operate within the law. I guess operating outside of the law is how they operate? Like, these are externally inconsistent statements. I very much want a workplace where all people feel safe and can be successful. This includes political views, and Google has room to improve this area, but not political views that differ. But I refuse to accept that misogyny and racism are political views. They absolutely are. If you're advocating, they're not correct views, right? But if you're advocating policies against women and in favor of men, that is inherently political. If you're advocating policy which discriminates against people based on their race, inherently political views. What kind of dummy are you? Events like Ads Diversity and Inclusion Week are important opportunities for us as a team to stand up for what is important to us. I will be taking part in encouraging all of you to as well. As always, please reach out to me, your manager, or your HRBP. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Mike, for showing that you don't understand basic terms. How do these people make so much money? Oh my gosh. Give their salaries to the poor or something. Let's see how much they support diversity then, right? When you diversify their payment options to include other people. On or around September 6th, 2017, less than 1 week before managers began meeting to determine calibration ratings, a Google employee suddenly and suspiciously received verbal feedback from his manager. He was in danger of not meeting expectations. You have engaged in wrongthink. On the next day, Robinson emailed the Google employee that the, quote, next and near final step in the process on our side would be that a chat with your current manager. It's a normal piece of due diligence that I do for all transfers, and it's usually the last step before we make a final formal transfer offer. On September 12, 2017, the Google employee informed his reviewing manager of his desire to join the Google X team. His reviewing manager claimed to be supportive of the transfer, even offering to expedite it to ensure he would go through before the performance reviews are finalized. On September 19th, during the weekly one-on-one meetings, his reviewing manager began discussing the Google employee's future with the team and told the employee that he needs to deliver a sizable project in the final quarter of the year with, quote, no room for failure. The Google employee understood this statement to mean that his performance review and his transfer were now in jeopardy. And anybody hearing that you better do this without failure, understands that they're in jeopardy. A few days later, on September 22nd, 2017, the Google employee received an email from Robinson titled "Bad News." The email went on to state that, quote, "After a lot of thought and discussion, come to the conclusion that the right fit isn't there for you and our team at this time." Robinson's sudden and cryptic turnaround, along with the Google employee's reviewing manager's negative verbal feedback, just a few weeks after the Google employee's comment of support in Damore's memo, made it clear that the transfer was subverted by the Google employee's management chain at Google due to his political views. Brief digression. It is impossible to determine whether they made, from the facts given, that they made an adverse transfer or hiring decision based on this guy's political views. They're trying to frame it that way, right? And let's be honest where we can and call out things that are not as clear where they're not as clear. And in this case, it is not that clear that this guy was not simply underperforming. I mean, when we heard about his earlier performance review, it was at an earlier point in time. We know that he has received meets expectations and one did not meet expectations in the past. It's possible that for whatever reason he was not meeting the expectations during his weekly one-on-ones, or he was failing to deliver on the project as intended. We also know that this was outside of his normal employment as a software engineer, being in the ad and revenue department, that he was getting up to speed, but maybe he wasn't getting up to speed fast enough anymore. We don't know. And I'm going to give Google the benefit of the doubt here and say that it's possible that their hiring decision wasn't based on his political views. But discovery can be a dangerous mistress, right? And if there are emails between these employers, these managers, about the person's conservative support of Damore's memo, that would be juicy. On or about October 12th, the Google employee confronted his reviewing manager during their one-on-one meetings about his call with Robinson, but his reviewing manager naturally denied any wrongdoing, stating that he only had, quote, a 15-minute conversation regarding the Google employee's strengths and weaknesses. Right? This is the legal way you deal with this, and not the illegal way. On or about the 25th of October 2017, 2 weeks after having a weekly meeting, the Google employee received a needs improvement rating. This occurred despite the fact that his reviewing manager had been assuring the Google employee every week since September 19th that he had been meeting expectations. The Google employee also argued that the rating was unfair because he only learned of his alleged poor performance on September 6th, 2017. We got to take their word for it in this one. We don't know. Because this needs improvement rating was his second one during his 10-year tenure at Google, the employee was also automatically placed on a performance improvement plan. It was the first time the Google employee had received any written feedback since joining his new team that his performance was in need of improvement. The Google employee had worked at Google for nearly a decade without incident, and as soon as Googlers learned he supported conservative ideologies, he lost his transfer to a different team, received a poor performance rating, and was placed on a PIP. It sure looks that way. But we can't actually know because based on the facts alleged, it doesn't amount to that. This is a weaker argument than their other arguments in this piece, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that discovery is merited. And if Google comes out and disagrees with this assessment, that's a disagreement of material fact. It will help this survive summary judgment motion or dismissal and allow discovery to occur. And I think that's the goal here. And, if discovery occurs, that'll be interesting. Plaintiffs and class members may point to innumerable other examples of illegal and discriminatory conduct at Google. For the sake of relative brevity, guys, you're like 50 pages in. Only a handful of examples have been described in this complaint. Attached as Exhibit B to the complaint is a compilation of posts and memes. Memes are in court documents. Is there a better time to be alive than having memes in official court documents? Oh, I can't think of one. From Google's internal message boards designed for employees' use. But we'll see if the left can meme, won't we? All 80,000 plus Google employees have access to an internal meme generator site that is described as, quote, a space for sharing internal views, announcements, passive-aggressive statements, awesomeness, witty remarks, Reddit OC, and cynical in a good way experiences on Google and outside. Employees often use the meme gen tool to post meme gen tools, man. This is part of an official corporate structure. Meme generators. Ah, what a time. What a timeline. Put the most popular entries on the top of the page. Other entries on Exhibit B are from widespread Google internal communications available to employees. All right. I'm actually going to stop here. The class action allegations are going to fit more in line with the legal causes of action. And I know I'm scrolling up and down. I'm sorry if it makes it hard to read. Get your own copy of the document. I'm not going to go through this because these are more legally intensive, and I want to provide you with some research on the California Code. Like, it immediately cites California Code of Civil Procedure, Section 382, which is certifying the class, I'm guessing. I want to provide you with some background on these things instead of just reading through them. And I haven't done the research yet. A day or two, and I will. And I will record it, and I will upload it. And I may live stream it. We'll see. I think live streaming this stuff and allowing questions and comments will be fun for the subscribers and anyone who's curious about it. Hopefully I'll post about the live stream far enough in advance that you guys have time to share it. Because if you've got questions about this, and how can you not? I've got questions about this. Right? Bring them to the live chat. Super chat will be enabled so you can promote your own question if you want to and put it to the top of the list. But I'm not asking you to give me money. Yes, wait, correction. I'm asking you to give me money. Give me all of your money to promote your question. That'd be great. But if you don't want to promote your question, I'm going to go through the chat as best as I can. I'm going to monitor it, and I'm going to try and address questions as they come up, whether they're promoted or not. Promoted questions will obviously get first treatment because YouTube alerts me to those promoted questions and allows me to quickly get to them. But anyway, please participate in the live chat. Ask your questions. I'm going to try and do research on this and have like some tangible answers because I don't practice in California. I don't do class action lawsuits normally. I mean, I would. But that's not my cup of tea, and typically people are hiring other firms for that are much larger with a larger staff base who can help them navigate all of the documents. I mean, if Discovery goes through on this, we're talking thousands of man-hours of document review to go through all of the internal stuff. So I'll be researching this and hoping to provide you guys with some quality Q&A. Please come in. Please join in the Q&A session. We have a lot of fun in the live streams on this show. And you guys can join in on that. You can get your questions answered. You can make fun of other people because we're free speech, baby. So just go ahead and call other people cucks, call them fairies, call them whatever you want. It doesn't matter. I don't care. The chat log goes away. Fire off at people, disagree, argue with me. Call me a stupid idiot for all I care. I'm just a guy online spouting his opinion using his expertise and training to do so. Doesn't mean I'm right. It simply means that I have a set of skills that not everybody has, and I'm like Liam Neeson, I have a particular set of skills. And I'm going to use it. And I'm going to use it to have fun. And I'm going to use it to look at this stuff and break it down for you guys and help you guys have fun talking about this. Because we have no influence over the outcome of this result. Most of the stuff we look at in life and complain about, we have no influence over. So take a moment, have fun, make fun of someone online, call me a stupid dummy, call the people in this stupid lawsuit a dummy because they are. Oh my gosh, can you imagine meeting these people in person? You could destroy them in a conversation simply because they cower away, tuck their balls up into their underwear, and go hide in a corner sucking their thumbs out of the offense that they suffered. Oh, it's just insufferable. Ugh. Join me. Let's start making this stuff fun. Let's make fun of these pathetic people on all sides of this argument. Again, if you think I'm a dummy, tell me about it. That'd be great. I'll call you a dummy back and we can have a beer over it or a shot of whiskey. Anyway, Sorry, I'm ranting. I'm ranting because I'm drinking too much. I'm really hungry. I'm going to go eat some food. It's like 3:30 in the morning and I got to be up at 7. So this will be great. Peace, y'all. Thanks for watching. Share this. Share this. Grow this channel for me. Make me do as little work as possible. I'm just kidding. I'm working hard. I'm putting out content for you guys. I will put out tons of videos every week. Share this channel around. Find people who are interested in this legal stuff. And, don't bring people who aren't interested. I don't want to do that to them. But if you know anybody who's interested in this, share it, like, subscribe. I put out videos constantly. And I'm going to do more and more live streams that involve the public. They're coming. So come join them because they're a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun for me. I assume they're a lot of fun for other people, but they're a lot of fun for me. And that's who I really care about. And if you haven't, go find on the Lagavulin community page, not on the Lagavulin page, but where they allow community posters. A guy named Kevin Flint has asked them to sponsor me. That would be hilarious. If Lagavulin sponsored my channel, I would love it. I would drink Lagavulin basically exclusively. It'd be a lot of fun. And if you haven't had Lagavulin, go have it. Trust me. Even if you hate it, it's a great decision. Anyway, like and subscribe. Thank you guys. Check me out on Patreon. I do have Patreon only content, some live streams. If you're a $10 plus Patreon supporter, you get access to the live chat. If you're a $5 plus supporter, you get access to the recording of the live chat as I'm able to do that. Those are going to be like every Wednesday or every other Wednesday. I haven't really decided, but come join the fun. Even if you just follow me on Patreon, don't give me any money. I love it. I appreciate it. Join the conversation. Tell me what you want to see. This is what I love doing this stuff. So tell me what you want. I'm market driven. I'm capitalist. You sculpt the product because you guys are the ones buying it. So I love you all. Thanks for joining me today. More videos coming out this week on this stupid subject. We got Lana Del Rey coming also. We got Milo and Roger Stone versus Twitter. Social media's in the crosshairs. And pretty soon I've got videos coming out on corporate personhood and what it means in Citizens United. And I've got another video about the Commerce Clause coming out. And what the hell? We've got another video about what it looks like when private forums like Facebook and Twitter become designated public forums and how that might impact things in the future and prevent their ability to ban and shadow ban people. And let's do it, y'all. Let's talk about this stuff and think about the magic of what a Supreme Court that protects free speech in the way it should be protected can do. Anyway, peace. Thanks for joining me. Y'all have a good night. I know I am having a great night.